Okay, I think we're back live, and welcome to the third round of the Stockholm Chess Challenge here in Stockholm. And basically, we have just started playing this tournament just yesterday, and we're already on the third round. We have played two games today, and this is the second round for today, and it's quite difficult playing these double rounds. And I'm not even playing the tournament, and I'm already quite tired, but. It's even harder for the players who have to think harder than I have to. But yeah, anyway, we have two leaders. We have Erik Blomqvist, who has played very good so far. Actually, he won his game against Philip Lindgren. Quite a good game, even though it was messy in the end. And I mean, he's a deserved leader of the tournament, together with the Danish Mads Hansen, who actually won his game against Milton. It was a very tricky game. When I left, I was pretty sure it was going to be a draw, but actually he won that game, and I still think it's a draw, but it was much more complicated than I thought, and I think they both made some pretty bad mistakes in the end, even though it's quite tricky to know what to play. Anyway, they're facing each other in this round because there are only two players on 2 points out of 2, and Erik Blomqvist is of course the grandmaster, the favorite in the tournament, and he's playing white, so he's gonna be the favorite in this game as well. And let's see, in the first round he played his knight f3 g3 stuff, which is of course okay, but I mean, it's not really his main openings, and I know he's an e4 player, and in this game he actually returns to e4. I think he had some time to prepare some variations for today as well, because yeah, the lunch break is quite long, and yeah, we had a couple of cups of coffee, and we just discussed the openings, and we see that we have a Berlin today, which is basically a nightmare for any spectator out there, and I don't know, a dream for a commentator, because I don't have to do much work. But no, it's gonna be a tough game. It's not gonna be an easy draw for Hansen, and I don't know, this Berlin stuff, it's not that common at below 2700 level. If you keep watching Carlsen and these guys, then sure you're gonna see a lot of Berlin games, but basically in club level and even grandmaster level, you don't see the Berlin too often, and I think it's not really an opening you need to have in your repertoire unless you're 27 or even 2800. I saw some interview a couple of months ago where, I don't know who said it, maybe Nakamura or something, who said that no one below 2750 really understands the Berlin endgame, and even though it sounds kind of cocky, there's some kind of truth to it, and we see that. Basically the endgame that everyone keeps discussing is the one arising after d4, knight e6, take here, d takes e5, knight f5, queen takes d8, king takes d8, and this has been discussed so much. I don't understand too much about this position, I have to be honest. I know some basic stuff, white black has the bishop pair, but this pawn, it can be weak. We have this f5 square as well, and it's all extremely subtle, and you have to be a grandmaster to understand this stuff. But luckily, we don't see this endgame too much. Basically, because people started realizing that maybe this endgame is just a draw, and it's been analyzed to death, so they tried something else. And usually they play maybe d3 here, which is very common. Try to just keep all the pieces on the board. Lately, players just go bishop c4 and play the Italian instead. And of course, there's this move that Blomqvist plays. He played rook e1. And this is one of the reasons I don't like playing the Berlin with black, because this endgame, I think it's really interesting. I would consider playing the Berlin if this endgame was played by force, but I don't really like facing this move rook e1, because the positions are pretty much, if white wants to draw, you can't really do much about it. Well, the thing is, you actually can, because I see Vladimir Kramnik going for this position all the time, and for some reason he keeps winning it with black, and I have no idea how he does it. Basically, we see this variation, bishop f1, this has all been played so many times, knight c3 and knight d8. It's like a exchange French, but even worse. But okay, actually Blomqvist plays this variation, which is not that dull, but it's it's not fun to play with black. It looks strange with knight d5, but basically if black gets to play moves like c6, d5, bishop d6 and so on, there's really nothing white can do about it. And if he doesn't want to go knight d5, which he does, bishop d6, the rook goes back to e1. I should perhaps mention that there was a couple of games in the World Championship between Carlsen and Karyakin in this variation. But I think they played this line d4, bishop f6, and I think Carlsen played this move rook e2, b6, and now he played this move rook e1, kind of saying that this b6 move is not great, and later on he can play bishop f4. But of course Blomqvist has his own ideas, and I've seen him play this before. Knight e5, bishop d6, this has all been played before. c6, knight e3, bishop c7, so it looks strange, but basically black is trying to go d5. And the only reason white keeps playing this variation at some point is that we have this move knight f5, d5, knight e7, and he actually picks up the bishop pair. And you might argue that this is not too... I mean, it's nothing special. I actually think usually they take with the rook here, but it doesn't really change too much about the position. Anyway, white has a bishop pair, which doesn't look like much, but it's something. And I mean, you don't really want to go d4, I guess, because the position kind of gets closed, and yeah, you kind of don't want the position to be too closed when you have the bishop pair. You want some kind of opportunity to open up the position later. So he goes g3, knight f6, d3, rook e8, and this is the kind of position where it's somewhere in between equal and slight advantage for white, I would suppose. White has a bishop pair. It's an advantage. I don't say it's equal or it's nothing, but I mean, I don't think, at least I don't have the patience to grind this out as a win, but I understand that Blomqvist, he kind of likes these positions. He has the bishop pair. He can press for a long time in this. Yeah, he took an e8. He can push for a long time. He has the bishop pair. It's a game. Even though I think it will be hard to win it, and it is hard to win it. I understand that it goes for this variation. It's absolutely not a draw. I'm not saying it's a draw, but I'm saying it's difficult to win. And anyway, I think Eric is going to try for a long time. I don't know, basically I think you just need to develop the pieces now, and maybe later on, I don't know, push for c4 or something, just to open up some files with the bishop. And black's position is extremely solid. I mean, there's nothing wrong with black's position. It's just that white has a bishop pair. That's the only thing white has, I guess. Anyway, we have a couple of other interesting games. We have the young Icelandic player Vignir Stefansson playing Adam Tokayev, who of course is a very strong grandmaster, I think from Russia. I'm not sure, is he from Russia? Maybe. Anyway, what's interesting is about Stefansson is that he doesn't play this main line stuff. He plays the Dutch defense in the last game against Westerberg, and he plays this move 3b4. It's not completely unknown. I've faced it a couple of times, but I mean, it's not a main line. And it kind of bothers me every time old people say that young kids today, they only know how to play theory and main lines and computer and stuff. I think Vignir's games are very interesting. He doesn't go for the main lines. He tries to kind of avoid theory, and he has his own ideas, and I think that's great. I think that's very, very useful. But of course, maybe they were just saying it about me because I know some main lines, but I don't know. Anyway, he went d3 here. Kind of makes sense. I mean, he wants to play maybe c4 later, maybe put the knight on d2. He stops e4 at some point, generally. Tokayev goes knight h5. Obviously, the idea is to go f5 and maybe a quick f4, which is very aggressive. Maybe he's hoping for some kind of scaring white into playing some worse moves, but this kind of idea can also backfire rather easily. I mean, if something doesn't go right, I mean, you haven't developed the queen side, so playing knight h5 and f5, it's quite early. And yeah, I like Wigner's move e4. It doesn't look like much because this bishop on g2 isn't that good, but after f5, you take on f5 just like Wigner does. Bishop takes knight d2. Not sure about knight fd2. Maybe knight bd2 is better, but anyway, this bishop is good. There's nothing wrong with White's position. It's you have some threats with g4, obviously. Um, it's an interesting position. It's not very theoretical. There's a lot of play in it, but I think it's a very interesting choice of opening. Queen c8, of course, prevents both g4 and bishop takes b7, so it has several purposes. Knight c3, there's a couple of nice squares on d5 and d4. Bishop h3, knight d5, threatening something nasty on e7, and rook f7. And I don't know, I'm gonna say maybe white's slightly better. I actually like white's position, at least for the moment, because, well, he has a nice grip on the light squares, but I'm just afraid that at some point black is going to play c6 and maybe even d5 and kick white out of that square. So maybe there is time to play c4 at some point, but I don't think white's worse, definitely not worse, I think. Maybe not, maybe it's too much to say slightly better, but I mean, I like white's position, there's nothing wrong with it. And black, I don't know, he has to figure out what to do with the h5 knight and how to develop the rest of the pieces. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting position. I think both players are quite satisfied. I mean, Tokayev, he gets an interesting position where he can fight for a win, and Stefansson probably the same, because he went for this entire variation. Also gonna look at this game, it's very interesting. Mayorov is playing Risting, who has played very good so far. I mean, he crushed his friend Coulson in the first game, and in the second game he played quite an easy draw, I think, against Bayrani, with white and Nimzo Indian. But playing black against this Grandmaster is much tougher than playing white, actually. And we see here that he plays the Benko Gambit, which is kind of a Norwegian specialty. I can't really say it's a Norwegian specialty, but a lot of Norwegian guys play it these days. Knight c3, bishop g7. This is kind of the new stuff that everyone keeps playing, because back in the days everyone used to play bishop takes a6, and they went for this line e4, bishop takes f1, king takes d6, knight f3, bishop g7, g3, castles, king g2. The king is safe on g2. Knight d7, and here I think the new stuff is supposed to be a4, and you can play a quick queen e2. And I mean, black has to try some stuff with rook a6, queen a8, and e6, and I'm not completely convinced by black's position. They kind of argue that white is doing very well here, and I think they might be right. So they kind of discovered some new ideas on the Benko Gambit, and bishop g7 here is one of them, and it looks really strange because, well, e4 looks so natural. But if you castle, knight f3 at this point, you have this nice move, queen a5. Suddenly you kind of threaten this pawn on e4, and if you play bishop d2, bishop takes a6. It doesn't look like you have an improved version, but the thing is that you haven't played this move d6, which means later on you can play e6 in one go, and even if they play like d takes and f takes, you can go d5 and you get the center. So I think this variation in the Benko is quite... I think there's some variation where white's still better, but it's very interesting. I think I would rather prefer playing that variation than the old stuff. But basically Mayor plays this fianchetto variation instead. I don't know what to say about it really, because everyone started playing this e4 knight f3 stuff, and they realized it was good for white, and they found this variation that Risting is playing, and then people kind of forgot about this variation with g3. Even though it's a very serious variation, it was recommended by Boris Avruk in his excellent books, but yeah, people just forgot about this variation, I think. And here knight bd7 was played by Risting. I'm not completely sure that's the main move. I think the main line is bishop takes a6, and there's supposed to be a clever point why white should play rook b1 here. Don't quote me on it, but I think rook b1 is supposed to be very accurate. If you castle, knight d7. Maybe here it's supposed to be rook b1. I'm not completely sure. I have to look it up. I also know there's some other lines that Jonathan Westerberg has played with with the knight f to d7 and going this way. I'm not completely sure. I don't play this stuff with black too often, at least. Well, knight d7. I like that Risting has his own ideas in the opening. I think the Norwegians are generally well prepared in the opening. Knight b6. He has obviously looked at this before, I think. And here White plays this move knight h4, which kind of looks strange to me, but I guess he has to have some kind of point behind it. I'm not really sure what it is, but yeah, I don't know. What happens if you play a move like rook e1? Bishop takes and I don't know, e4. Maybe it's not that good anyway, knight fd7. Black has some squares here, and yeah, it's interesting. I don't understand completely this knight h4, but I think Majoro played it quite quickly, so it has to be, I don't know, well known. Bishop a6, queen c2. And after knight fd7, which looks quite natural, he just goes back with the knight. Yeah, I'm not completely sure. I mean, the idea could be, of course, that you really want to play this move queen c2 and maybe rook d1, and you can't really play queen c2 now because d5 is hanging, but knight h4 looks strange to me. I mean, that's obviously one kind of idea, but it doesn't look like the most logical variation. Knight f3 anyway, knight c4, and well, black is playing actively, of course. You always have some kind of compensation in the Benko gambit. Sometimes you have enough, sometimes you don't. Queen a5. Well, you kind of want white to make some kind of move here on the queen side, like, I don't know, you don't really want to move these pawns if you, I mean, you don't really want to move these pawns because, I mean, if you play moves like a4, sometimes a4 is a good idea with the ideas like knight b5, but here knight b5 isn't really possible, and I mean, maybe you're just weakening the b file. Rook c1, rook a7. I would try to find some idea to play maybe c4, knight c5 if I was black. We'll see b3 is actually played here, possibly just trying to prevent c4, but rook c8, a3. So probably the idea is that c4 is basically impossible now because white can play b4 and then a4, and the compensation is basically just running out. Rook b8, queen d1. I was once supposed to. I think this is the position they have right now, and I think maybe white's slightly better. It's difficult to say. You kind of need to know what to play against rook b7 because this pawn is weak. You can't really go here, right? Because a3. No, actually, you can't take it because rook a1 and you pick up this one. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff you have to calculate. And this rook isn't really optimal because you can take a c3, so yeah, probably rook ab1, but yeah, black has some kind of compensation. You kind of have to watch out for this as well. Yeah, the queen is not perfect on a5, but maybe knight a4 at some point is kind of annoying, but queen b5, yeah, queen b5 is supposed to be good. I mean, b3 and e2. I think black is doing alright. What else is going on? We have to take a look at. Okay, a lot has happened in this game. Ulvi Bayrani, grandmaster from. I keep forgetting where he comes from. I haven't really checked it up, that's why. And he's playing Westerberg, who's of course, for the Swedish viewers, know who Westerberg is. He's a very strong player from Stockholm. And he plays the Queen's Gambit accepted quite a lot because he likes the stuff with knight f3, knight f6, e3. He likes this variation with b5. I've seen him play this a lot of times. a4, b4. And then he usually just plays this, and I think it's bishop b. No, maybe not bishop b7, but e6. I don't know. And then bishop b7, knight e7. Eventually he will go c5. He's kind of, I don't know if you can call him an expert, but yeah, he's that's his pet variation. He loves playing it. And after e3, he has tried this as well. But the thing is, b5 now is not very good because you can play a4, b4, and now you have this tricky move queen f3. Hitting the rook here, you have to go c6, and you can play, I think it is bishop takes c4, and knight f6, and basically these moves aren't really what you want to play. Knight e2, I think this is, whoops, sorry, knight e2. This is not really what you want to play with black. I think white is doing really well here. So I think maybe by round he saw this in the database that maybe Westerberg has tried this against some lower rated players, but e3, b5 isn't really a good option here. He has played this line with e4 and b5 as well. It's actually really interesting, but I think in this game anyway, e3, he just goes for this line with e5, which is very solid. It leads to this kind of position where white gets an isolated pawn on d4, but he gets some very free development. And I have to remember, it was some very famous game a couple of years ago in the European Championship. I think Paco Vallejo Pons was playing black. Maybe not bishop d6. Yeah, there was some variation with queen e2 anyway, and we got some kind of endgame with king takes. Which, it's a real nice game, but I can't really remember how the game went, sorry. Anyway, we get something completely different in this game, and I can't really say that I've seen this before. White plays this move knight f3, and well, one idea is of course clear. You can't really take on e3 because bishop takes f7 would be not that good for black. Of course, if you take it, the queen is hanging on d8. But bishop b4 looks like a very logical response by Westerberg. Bishop d2, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2. Obviously the same idea. If you take on e3, you can still take on f7. Nothing has changed. So it just develops normally, knight takes. And in this game white just played queen takes d4, and we get this kind of endgame where I think black is just doing alright. I mean, Westerberg is a very solid player. I don't think he has anything against a draw in this game, but yeah, I think it's just okay for black. He plays a very good move, I think a6. It would be kind of annoying if you can play this with knight b5 and you have to kind of defend it with moves like knight a6. You really don't want to do it. a6, it's kind of preparation in the future for maybe b5, maybe c5, you don't really know. It's just a very useful move taking away the square on b5. Bishop e2, and I guess it's kind of saying if the castle here, maybe black can go b5, bishop e2, bishop b7, and just, I don't know, knight d7, c5. I'm not really sure what happens after rook c1 at this point though, but I mean the idea would be bishop e2, and now b5 is not really possible because bishop f3 is not something you want to allow. Rook a7 is of course, it doesn't lose material, but it's not very nice to play. So bishop e2, castles, knight c3, knight bd7. Maybe white's, he has slightly easier development, but I don't see how you're supposed to take advantage of it so far. I mean, maybe it's just good for white, but he has to make use of his development advantage quickly if he wants to do anything. Knight c5, f3 was played. It's generally a good idea to advance on the side that you're better on, and in this case black has 3 against 2 on the queen side, so it's very logical if black wants to expand here with c5 and so on, but it's not really ready for it. So on the other hand, white is 4 against 3 on the king side, and one way to make use of this is to play f3 like Bajrani does in the game, and rook e8 and e4, and when you're doing this, you're kind of taking away a lot of squares for black's pieces as well. I mean, here maybe knight e4 was even quite annoying to face, and I mean, you don't want to play moves like rook f1 defending. I mean, f3 and e4, it's very logical. Some people might argue that this bishop is on the same color as this pawns, but I mean, the bishop can be quite good on c4 and so on. You see that knight e6 is played, and something you really don't want to do here is you don't want to take on e6, because I see a lot of beginners play moves like knight takes e6, and after bishop e6 black has absolutely no problems. And the thing is that white has kind of developed black's pieces for him. It's much better to play like white does here, bishop c4, and after knight takes d4, rook takes d4, it's black who has to take and develop white's pieces more. And I would say that probably white's slightly better here, because he's ahead in development. Rook d1 is coming quickly. And we see here that bishop e6, the thing Westerberg is doing now is basically saying he's so solid, he can just develop and trade these pieces, and in the end you're not going to be able to use your development advantage. And for his sake I hope he's right. Rook e6, rook d1. It's obvious that white's slightly better here. He has the d file. It's an advantage. It's not too much, but I mean it's some advantage. Black is going to suffer in this game, but I mean, yeah. And continuing what I said earlier, I mean, white really wants to use his 4 against 3 advantage, and still has the opportunity to do it. So he plays f4, obviously with the idea of going e5. And another advantage of this is when you play e5 and the knight has to go somewhere, you can even use the square on d7 for the rook, because this is a rather nice square for the knight. It keeps a lot of squares. And well, c5, something has to be happen, and kind of afraid that maybe black's position is just not very comfortable. Rook d8, take, king g7, e5. White's definitely better. Not sure how much better he is, but white's better. Knight g4, and yeah, this is another thing that's kind of annoying for white, because black is going to annoy the pawns as much as possible. I mean, h3 here is so logical. Probably he's going to play knight e3 and try to attack this guy. And well, if you play a move like g4, you might even consider moves like, I don't know, knight g2 even. Okay, maybe not knight g2, it doesn't do much, but I mean, generally you want to annoy these pawns, and at this point you can probably even go g5. And of course, if you move this pawn somewhere, you're going to pick up this pawn on e5. I'm not sure g4 is the right idea, but anyway, you see the idea. Black is going to provoke white a lot. I mean, yeah, maybe not g4, I'm not sure. g3. You can still keep annoying with, I don't know, knight f5 or even. Okay, this is actually, if it works, it's much better. Byranda played knight e4. And it kind of needs some kind of idea against knight takes h2. And I kind of need to figure out what it is. He could play knight f6. Trying to, I don't know, check and play rook h8 and pick up this guy. Maybe there's even something better, but yeah, he has his own counterplay. He has rook d7 ideas, taking here, knight d6, picking up this guy. There's a lot of ideas. It's a lot to calculate. It's not really as calm as you would expect it to be. Alright, I'm gonna take a look at. We have a quick draw. These guys are so boring. Okay, we apparently have a draw between Milton Panzer and Shama Hemant, which, okay, I'm gonna say it's a decent result for Panzer, even though he's white and I would have hoped that he would play more interesting. We have the Queen's Gambit declined. He plays the exchange variation. Milton is extremely easy to prepare against, by the way. He usually plays the same openings, but he knows them well and he's very solid, so you can't get much out of the opening against him, even if you know what he plays. e3, bishop e7, bishop d3, castles. I'm gonna try and remember some stuff here. I usually have like a guideline that I don't play queen c2 unless they go c6. Milton plays queen c2 immediately. Um, I'm trying to remember queen. If you play knight e2 here, I mean generally black doesn't want to go for this variation because of this knight e2 stuff. But if black tries to avoid this move c6 and goes rook e8, castles, and he goes knight f8, he's trying to, I don't know, later on maybe he wants to go c5 in one go. I think there's this famous move b4 here, which Kasparov played against Lautier. And wait, basically you're saying that b4, b5 is a strong idea. I mean you're kind of pushing on the queen side, and I mean the tactical idea is if you take on b4, you can take on f6, and well, you don't want to take with the queen because knight takes d5, and if you play g takes f6, you can play knight takes d5 anyway. With the idea queen takes d5, queen a4, and you're threatening both the rook and the bishop on b4. And you could try this, well, it looks clever, bishop h3 threatening a mate, but you have this in between move knight f4 anyway, so it's just very good for white. I have my doubts about how good b4 really is if black doesn't take it, but I mean this is supposed to be the general knowledge about this variation, but queen c2, of course, it's nothing wrong with the move. c6, and we get this main line which has been played a lot of times, but generally no one plays it anymore for black because they think white's position is quite comfortable. I mean, the main idea here, which I have played many times and Milton has played many times and a lot of juniors have played it many times, is to go f3 here. And everyone started playing this variation because of a book by Lars Schandorf a couple of years ago. It's an excellent book, I really recommend it. And yeah, the idea is, of course, you want to push e4 at some point after some preparations. Rook d1, or even rook e1, maybe king h1, maybe h3, maybe bishop h4, bishop f2. Eventually you want to push e4. And generally white is scoring very well in this variation. I'm not sure how good this variation actually is. Everyone seems to think it's very good for white, but I'm not completely sure. But generally, this is the idea, and I think it was Botvinnik who found this idea. Not completely in this position, but the general idea he found in a game against Keres, I think 1953. Now I'm not sure about the year. I'm pretty sure it was against Keres. But this idea is, of course, very, very efficient in practice, at least. I've scored a lot of points in junior tournaments playing this f3 and eventually e4 and then e5 and then f4 and just crushing black on the king side, you know. It feels like I'm not really sure what Milton is doing here. He kind of going for something else. Maybe he has looked at this before, but bishop takes f6 is completely new to me in this position. Bishop takes f6 and b4. The idea is, of course, very well known. I played it myself with the knight on f3 instead of e2, but here, I don't know. The minority attack with b4 is, of course, very, very well known. I'm not sure about how good it really is. I mean, I think maybe black should start with going a6 and a4 because later on when you play b5 and you kind of get this structure, I think it's good for black to have traded a couple of a pawns. So you only have one weakness here on c6. And yeah, I'm not sure how weak this pawn really is. It's kind of difficult to win the game only because of one weakness. And well, of course, it's an interesting position to play, and I think maybe if I was black, maybe I would have started with a6, but generally this bishop on f6 is not really very good. It doesn't do much on f6. I mean, if you could meet b5 with c5, then fine, the bishop would be doing something, but here I would consider playing bishop e7, b5, and bishop d6, just to get the bishop to a nice diagonal. There's not really an attack going on, but I mean it's a nice bishop. And I mean, of course, you have to suffer this pawn structure, but I'm not sure how bad this is. You can even play like rook e6. and try for an attack if you want to. Anyway, let's see what happened. G6. This is connected to an old maneuver. I think Stolberg played it a couple of times. B5, knight E6. He takes knight A4. Of course, very sensible. But if we don't look at the queen side, the general idea for black is he wants to go knight G7, and this bishop, which is really bad, can now be exchanged by bishop F5. Later on, you can take and maybe put the knight on D6. This is very common in the Queen's Gambit exchange variation. Here, however, I mean, of course, C6 is hanging, so bishop D7 is of course very natural. Rook A B1, Queen A5. It looks like a good move. I mean, black can even consider playing Rook C8 and maybe C5 at some point if this bishop is really good. So at this point, Milton played this move Rook B7 to annoy the bishop, bishop C8, and they kind of repeated the position. And Milton just entered the room, so I have to, I don't know. Not a long game today. I'm just gonna have to ask, this variation with bishop takes f6, have you played this before, or? Okay, is there a reason you didn't play the standard, f3 stuff?
I just thought that that's where you play. Bishop is.
Well, I mean, I think this position has been played a couple of thousand times, so I think it's a main line. But okay, well, I don't know. I've seen you play the similar positions a lot of times. I mean, like you get a similar position out of the Nims of Indian as well. So okay, well, it's a double round, so I can't blame you too much for taking a short draw. Alright, do we have any other interesting games going on? I'm gonna take a look at 2-minus game against Hamilton. Mostly because I kind of told Felix what he should play against Hamilton. But I wanna see if the preparation actually worked. Okay, so we have the Nims of Indian. Hamilton is a strong international master from Canada, but I'm not really impressed by his play so far. He didn't get too much in the opening against Trygvistad. Maybe it's not his fault, of course. Okay, so we have this variation with knight f3. And like I said, even the Risting played this variation this morning, and the idea is, if I have to repeat myself, a3. This is the well-known variation that Kramnik has played so many times with black, and it's just supposed to be a draw these days. White tries some new ideas just to get another kind of position. This knight f3 stuff is what they usually try. And with the idea of after d5 you can play something else, like c takes d5. And I think this is completely fine for black as well, but I did something different. But anyway, he played this move c5 instead, which I think is the main line, but I'm not completely sure I like it as much as d5 for black. This has all been played a lot of times. Bishop g2, knight e4. So basically white gets a very ugly pawn structure, and if black gets time to play like b6, bishop b7, black is just supposed to be better because of the pawns, but white has to play very quickly here. So he goes e4, d6, e5. This has been played a lot of times. I actually played this position myself against Milton's father in the Swedish league. Bishop d6, bishop f4. This is all very well known. Knight e8. And he plays this move c5. And I have to remember, is this really... This is not my game against Pontus Sjödahl. I think that game went knight d7, rook e1, and everything just got exchanged on e5. And yeah, this is a well-known endgame. It's supposed to be in a draw, but I mean, I think black is supposed to be a bit more careful than white, because we have some ideas with rook b1 and c5 and even rook a5. This knight e8. I'm trying to remember the stuff. c5, definitely this is theory, and I think Felix knows it as well, but queen takes c4. It doesn't look like much, but if you look at the position, we have some real nice bishops, especially the one on g2. And black has some problems developing, and yeah, f6, knight d3. I'm pretty sure this is all still theory. And looking at the time, Felix clearly knows what he's doing, at least so far. I mean, yeah, black has been thinking for a lot of... I mean, this is not preparation for black. He has been surprised in the opening, definitely. I'm looking, can you play c5 here? You definitely have to go bishop takes f4, knight takes f4. This guy on e6 is hanging. So if you take on c5, maybe rook c1. I don't know, something like this, rook e1 or even knight d5 at some point. Looks kind of scary. It's 2 pawns, but I mean you have to calculate this stuff. Maybe you can even take on e6 immediately, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a tricky position. I mean, white has to get some kind of compensation here as well. He's a pawn down. Maybe you can go e5 here. But it's also risky with the king. I think this is supposed to be theory. I'm not sure if it's good for anyone, but yeah, some kind of theory. Also have this game. Excuse me for being a bit biased, but I'm looking at most of my friends' games in this tournament. Erik Thurn is playing Hampus Sørensen, and well, of course, I've seen them play this before. I think usually Erik plays g4, the old Shabalov stuff. I think Shirov played it a couple of times in the 90s, but basically no one plays this anymore. And I think maybe he feared some preparation, but I know that he has some experience in this bishop d3 as well, so it's no big surprise. And I don't know this stuff too well. I mean, bishop d3, I know it's one of the main lines. I usually play bishop e2 here, because, well, basically I want to go e4 quick. I mean castles first, of course, and then e4. And you get some really interesting position, and this has been analyzed a lot as well. It's supposed to be a draw, but of course bishop d3. Now I'm not completely sure about the theory. Castles, castles, a3. I have to think for a while. I think the main move these days is supposed to be rook c8, or at least it used to be a couple of moves ago, and after b4 you can play this move c5, which looks extremely wicked. But after b takes c5 you have this idea of taking on f3, you can take on c5, sacrifice a piece, and this is supposed to be a draw because you have some stuff with bishop e5, queen c7, and also some sacrifices and rook h5. It's supposed to be a draw, but I'm not completely sure anymore. So anyway, I don't know if these guys know this stuff, but queen e7, knight g5, all of this looks very natural. Basically, black has to go for either c5 or e5 in this variation, and when you put the knight on g5, you're basically going to e4, and you're stopping c5 for at least a while. h6, knight e4, and I don't really like the move that black plays now. I don't like knight f6. Maybe he already has some problems, but I don't know, c5? Is it that bad for black? It feels okay for black. Because, well, you can't really take on b5, I guess. There's some tactics with taking on h2 and queen h4, but knight f6, you don't really want to give up this bishop on d6. It's your best bishop. Bishop d2. The bishop is coming here. I don't really like black's position here. It feels like white's at least slightly better, maybe even more, but this guy on b7 can be a big problem. If you look at Felix Thoma in his game yesterday, the bishop can be really bad. I mean, e5 is played here. It's extremely similar to Hampus' game yesterday. Sorry, not Hampus' game, Felix' game. And this guy has to wake up. And I mean, rook takes e5, maybe bishop f3. Later on, white can even play b4 if he really wants to, but I mean, you don't really have to do it so far. I mean, rook c1 is fine. White is definitely better. Yeah. Yeah, this is not a good opening for Hampus. Okay, let's see what's going on the top boards. I'm not really gonna look too much at Blomqvist's game because that position is really boring. I mean, he's gonna try for a long time in this Berlin stuff, but he has the bishop pair, sure. But I mean, nothing direct is happening. He's gonna grind for a while. Maybe he's gonna win in the end, but so far nothing is happening. So what happens in Stefansson's game? He played this move knight e4. It looks very natural. I mean, c6 is no longer possible because of knight takes d6, but okay, black just takes on g2, develops. c4 is very natural, I guess. Knight e7. It feels like white's slightly better. I think white can be very satisfied with the opening. Maybe take on e7. Now I'm not completely sure what to do with this bishop. I kind of wanna go back to c1 at some point, but yeah, this knight on e4 is very nice. It's hard to drive it away. I mean, black can eventually try to prepare c6 and d5, but you know, until that happens, it's nice for white. This knight on h5, it's not doing much. You can go to knight f6, but I don't know, queen e2 and just take back. White should be slightly better. Nothing special, but slightly better. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at this game. We have the Indian player Rakesh Kumar, so I'm gonna update. He's playing Philip Lindgren, and the position looked really interesting, so I'm gonna look. He plays the Karukham. Philip plays a lot of different openings, so it's kind of difficult to prepare against him. And we have this two knights defense. I don't know, two knights variation. I don't know what you call it these days, but anyway, this has been played a couple of times. I played it a couple of times against Philip in Blitz, but never in a serious game. G6, and he plays this move that I like, G4. And the reason I like this move is not really because it's that good, but it kind of looks funny. I mean, you can develop with bishop g2 and even just keep going with h4, h5 at some point. You kind of have to ask black how he's going to develop his pieces, and well, knight e7 was played and white just went h4 in the game. h6, queen g3. Yeah, f4 is coming, I guess. I'm not too thrilled with the openings that this Indian player has been playing so far. I mean, the Chigorian he played against Hampus was not really that good, I think. But I mean, this opening is definitely interesting. f4 is not really saving anything. He's going f5 at some point, maybe g5, maybe h5. He's saving all those cards. Bishop h3, king b8, and now he goes f5. And this is just tricky to analyze. Bishop e5 was played. Bishop f4, and the position kind of gets closed. e5, d4. Maybe I should stop here and see what's going on. The position has been kind of closed, which is good for the knights, obviously, and this bishop doesn't really impress me that much. I like Philip's move here, g5. Just look at this bishop now. I'm not sure black is better or something like that, but the bishop on h3 is not very pretty. So it takes bishop g2. Okay, this is interesting. I don't really see why black plays this move rook h f8. Looks strange to me. Why would you give up the h file? Maybe white is going to play rook h5 anyway, but yeah, it looks kind of strange to me. Maybe you can go f6 or something passive, but this doesn't look right. Rook h7, knight c8. Okay, so probably, okay, I'm just gonna take a wild guess, but black is probably going for some kind of attack on the queen side. The knight's going to d6, maybe queen a5, eventually c5, c4. And when that happens, he wants as many pieces as possible on the board. He doesn't want to trade any rooks. And this guy on f8 kind of needs to be there in order to protect f7. So, but I don't know. I mean, f6 looks like a very sensible move. I mean, you can't really take here because queen takes e5, obviously. And at the same time, this guy is weak, f7 is weak, e5 is a weakness as well. And after c5, rook f1. I'm not really sure what's going on, but rook f5, maybe. Okay, so we already have another result. You wanna show your game? Alright, sure. Yeah, sure. Okay, so here you have the microphone.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, so
We should analyze our game.
yeah.
The second game in the day, and it was very difficult. I think opponent was played low than his strength because he was tired. I was also tired. D takes e4, e3, and he played e5. It is surprising for me. He always played b5, a4, b4. We can analyze it.
Yeah, you can analyze it.
Which I can show it.
Yeah.
b5, a4, b4, bishop takes c4, knight f6, knight f3.
Sorry, just
Okay, e6, and castle king side, and bishop e7 or something. Bishop e7.
yeah.
It is. I think it is better for white, but I struggled for finding a clear edge. But I prepared something. He played in this system 19-20 games.
Yeah. But I think
but
it's.
I don't understand why he changed his way.
But I think there's one problem with this move order. If you play e3 quickly, because after b5.
b5, a4,
yeah,
okay,
b4.
c6, it's not possible, but he's playing always b4.
Yeah, but there's this line queen f3 at this point after b4.
I saw his game, he won Babla against Babla, but I think he has good preparations in there.
Okay.
I will play, I thought I must play this quiet position with big chances to draw and minimal advantage.
Okay.
And bishop takes c4, e takes d4. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And now I played knight f3.
Yeah, this was new to me.
Yes, it is not so much played. Normal move is a take d4 and isolated pawn, but I prepared it before.
Okay.
And I think bishop b4 is normal move. Okay, you can play knight f6. I can castle.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't sure. Maybe only difference is that I didn't give him bishop b4 move.
Okay, so you're probably going to play some e takes d4 later.
Yes, e takes d4 later.
Yeah.
But it gives bishop b4, bishop d2, bishop d2, queen d2.
Yeah.
Knight f6. I think it is playable endgame after queen d4, knight d. Okay, this shows knight c3. Okay, if take e3 also playable. I think white is white have minimal advantage, but it can be draw if opponent black plays better.
Okay.
And knight f6 also we can play it. Queen d4. He played queen d4, but I'm not sure about it. Maybe queen e7, castle, knight c3, knight c6, queen h4. Something if bishop g4 or knight d5, or I don't sure. Maybe queen f4 also.
Yeah.
I saw it before, not in preparation,
Okay.
because it's 2 hours. We must rest after game, and also
Yeah.
there's no time for big preparation. Knight d4, a6, and I did prophylaxis move. I think I played stronger move.
Bishop e2. Yeah. You
Yes.
prevent b5, I guess.
Yes, against before. What always we must ask myself. I'm asking myself what he wants.
Yeah.
It's very important. If you know what he wants, you can play against his moves.
Yeah.
Okay, he won't b5, bishop b7. Now b5 is bishop f3 have
Yeah. Of course.
castle. It's also can play move c5, knight b3. I'm not sure. Maybe
You mean rook
it's-
a7 or?
Yes, maybe b6, bishop f3, not rook a7. But I put knight c3.
Yeah. Sometimes you have knight a4 stuff.
I can
guess.
castle kingside, queenside. Sorry. In this type positions, 4 versus 3 and 3 versus 2, this important open file.
Yeah.
Who have open file control, he has advantage. And castle, maybe king e7 also playable.
Alright.
But I'm not sure about this. Knight c3, knight take d7, castle queen side, because rook came to game to open file. Knight c5. Knight c5, I'm not sure about it. Maybe rook e8 firstly after.
To prevent
Knight-
this f3 idea or?
Not sure, but because knight in c5 will not give chance to b c5.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe knight f8, I can put knight e6. Also, you're right, it's preventing center game.
Yeah.
Knight c5, and I proud with this move f3. Because if bishop f3, something like knight g4 can play, knight e5.
Oh yeah.
It is, and well, black has to knights which wants to e4, but they can't.
Yeah.
I can say it's like stupid knights. Rook e8, e4, knight e6.
It's difficult for him to develop.
Yes, it's difficult to develop. Maybe knight e6 firstly, but I'm not sure. Knight f5 I can play also with without risk, without any
Yeah.
risk.
I mean, the bishop
Okay.
on c8 is a problem. Yeah.
Bishop and open file I can put c7, and bishop can develop to good place. If b5 c5 gives d6 square.
Yeah.
e4, knight e6, bishop c4, knight d4, rook d4, bishop e6.
So here he is.
Yes,
Clearly
rook
has some
h
problems here.
d1, and I'm not sure g6 is bad move. I think maybe king f8. You know rule king must go to center
Okay.
in endgame. g6. Okay, I can play something like g4 or g5. I can try to attack in d7.
You think it's better to play maybe g5 instead of g6?
In g4, g5 black plays, yes?
No, I mean instead of g6 in the game. If you can play g5 with black,
g5.
just to control f4 more. Something.
Okay, can play, but I don't sure. Knight d5.
Okay.
It can be hanging position.
Yeah.
Okay, king f8. I put structure without changing.
Yeah.
I will think about this later. What maybe g6, maybe g5. Okay, g6. I put f4.
Yeah. So we have e5 knight e4 ideas.
Yes. I think it's not very bad position. I'm not sure about c5, rook d8. I don't know what he can play. Rook e8, I can take a8 and e5. Rook
Yeah,
d8,
it looks
king
very.
g7, e5, and now I think it's last chance knight h5 because knight d5 it's g5 or gc or to g5.
Okay, and if knight d5 now?
And then okay, I can go to this position, but it's not. I can play some moves. For example, I can take. I can rook put to rook maybe g6. Okay, it's have also advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe I can put f6. I can destroy this pawn.
Yeah.
Head pawn of pawn band. But knight g4 is without chance. Knight e4 stronger move.
Well,
And
that's.
I played against g5. Knight controls it. And
So if you take on h2 here, what is happening if the knight takes h2?
rook d7.
Okay, so it's just
Terrific
everything is
position.
hanging.
Yes, everything is hanging. I can
Yeah.
choose what I will eat, what I will not. Okay, h3. And lastly, I think it's winning position, but I don't sure now. Knight c3 is normal.
Should
But
be winning,
should
right?
be winning, but it's too many moves need.
Yeah.
And knight e3, g4, and now it's mate. I think knight c4, knight e3, knight e5, and intermediate on g5,
Yeah, very nice move.
and black resigns.
Okay, so congratulations, very nice game.
Thank you, thank you.
And do you enjoy Stockholm so far?
Yes, I came here for because I didn't in Sweden.
Okay.
In Sweden.
Maybe it's too cold. I think
No,
it's too
no,
cold,
no.
but
It's not a gives problem. Uh, Only maybe the what because no time to see city. But
yeah,
okay, I can concentrate in my chess
yeah,
results.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being
Okay.
here and showing your game. Okay, thank you.
Good luck in your job.
Oh, thank you. Good luck in your games.
Thank you.
Okay, let's look at what's happening in the other games here. Gonna tip update. Blomqvist, still the same type of position, I guess. It's gonna be a long game. He's never gonna let me go home, I guess. What else is going on? We have Wigner's game. Okay, knight c6, c4, knight e7. It actually allowed this change in pawn structure. So after knight g5, it's really interesting. He allowed this structure, but on the other hand, he gets the square on e6. Rook e7 was played, and I mean, what is going on here? I have no idea. I mean, this knight on e6, of course, it's really beautiful, but I mean, probably you can't really sacrifice it, right? You have to go for c6. But maybe that's good enough. I mean, c6 here, maybe. And eventually, I think white has to take on g7 or something. This is not a bishop you want to trade for this knight. I mean, sure, you can play rook c1, but just queen d7. I'm not sure about allowing this knight takes d5. I would have gone for knight takes e7, something simple. But I'm a simple chess player. I don't like this crazy stuff. He probably has some kind of idea. Okay, let's look. So, alright. Something has happened in Felix's game. A lot of has happened. He played this move c5 that I liked. Bishop takes f4, knight takes f4, queen takes. Just like I said, queen e7, rook e1, everything is just traded off. Rook f7, rook b1. And I think Felix is gonna get what he wants, a quick draw. Probably a quick draw, right? Rook b8. Yeah, you can take on b7, right? Even with the rook. Yeah. So probably a quick draw for Felix. That's perfect for him. That's basically what he wanted. And that's usually what you get in this variation anyway, so. I can't help but feel bad for Hamilton. It feels like he's always a victim for some long preparation by these juniors. And yeah, he's having a hard time. And what's Avon doing? played this move c4 even though it's just met by b4, and where's his compensation now? Now I think it's just much worse, I think, if it doesn't have anything immediate. I mean, b5 is threatened. Later on he's gonna play bishop c3. You play the bank again, but this is just horrible, right? Alright, good. So if I'm completely wrong, then I can blame Milton. Okay, he played c3 actually. So bishop takes c3. He's 2 pawns down. What's his idea? I can't really see it. I mean, if it takes, then I guess rook takes. And he's just losing, right? I think he's losing. Yeah, I don't like this. I think Risting is losing. But anyway, let's look at some other games. How is Philip doing? Well, I wasn't too thrilled about this position here, but maybe I'm just completely wrong. Okay, it's not that clear. It feels like even though black eventually maybe wins this pawn, I don't know, maybe he does with rook g6 and stuff. Even if he wins this pawn, I mean, this pawn is going to be weak. It's not really a pawn you want to take. I mean, I kind of want to leave this pawn there. But what is white supposed to attack? I mean, moves like rook e5 doesn't really threaten anything, and knight g6, and I'm not really sure I want to sacrifice that exchange for e6. Maybe this bishop is really strong, but I'm not really sure I want to find out how strong it really is. I don't know how to evaluate this. It's complicated. Yeah. I'm gonna say it's complicated. And that way they can't blame me for being wrong. It feels like it's like when you write these opening books and you see the evaluation, it's unclear. Which usually means the author has no idea what's going on. And it's really a like lazy solution, but well, sometimes you have to say unclear, or I don't know what's happening, or it's complicated. So c4, b4, c3, bishop takes c3. Let's see what Risting's idea is. Bishop c4, bishop takes g7, bishop takes a2, rook a1. Okay, so clearly if it takes here, take here, rook takes b4, it's actually only 1 pawn down. And that's actually, maybe it's reasonable, because we have this lovely square on c5 of the knight. But is it really enough? I'm not completely sure. I mean, a5 is probably, the pawn has to run quickly. Knight c5, let's push it even more, a6. It might be okay because of this knight on c5, but I'm not completely sure. Feels like black is kind of fighting for a draw here, but yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it was. Maybe, is there any point in starting with queen d4 check, king g8? Oh, maybe you can play b5. Oh no, not in this position, but in this position. If you play b5, this bishop is trapped. Then this is just losing again. Maybe I'm missing something very easy here, but of course you can take on d5 or something, but the position is just horrible. One of these pawns is gonna be a new queen. No, I think this move b5 is very clever, and maybe that's something you missed. Doesn't look good for the Norwegian prodigy. Let's look at, okay, something has happened in Blomqvist's game. After rook b1, b6, he actually found a way to open up the position. He played b4. It's not nice for the structure, considering the pawn on a4 is kind of weak, but I mean, if you play c5, yeah, why not c5? Maybe you go bishop c3 here, and after d4, you just go bishop d2, and then later on the bishop is going to be a monster on g2. I mean, there's kind of a rule that when you have the bishop pair, like two bishops against bishop and the knight, there's always one bishop that you really want to make good, and that's this one, because, well, in this case it's this one, because this one actually has an opponent in this one. It's dark squared bishops. You kind of want to use this one. It doesn't have an opponent, so if you play bishop c3, you're kind of provoking this move d4, and then it makes this bishop even better. I'm gonna try and pretend I understand what's going on here. I'm gonna say that's the idea. Bishop g2, it's a very nice bishop. If rook a8 immediately, then okay, maybe we can even play rook a1, bishop g2 later on. Maybe we can sacrifice it somehow with queen f3 and stuff. Get some compensation. Maybe we can even play a5 at some point, but yeah, I don't know. It looks interesting. Might even say complicated. Let's look at this game. We have Tryggestad has been playing very interesting openings so far. I mean, he completely neutralized Tokayev in the first round. Got an easy draw with white, even though that's nothing to brag about considering the variation. But I mean, in the second round against Hamilton, he played Grimfeld. He played really well, found a really nice novelty. He just blitzed out all the moves and got an easy draw. So here we have been playing against the Danish prodigy Martin Haubro, I think is an international master. And well, he plays the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez. So far he has been playing a lot of forced lines with a lot of theory, but this doesn't really strike me as a forced line with a lot of theory. Castles, bishop g4. Of course there's a lot of lines, like f6 is the main line, but no one actually plays that move because it's kind of boring after d4. And I've tried basically everything. Bishop e7, knight e7, bishop d6, queen e7. Xvidler played queen e7, which looks absurd, but I like bishop g4. I like the line Haubro is playing, h3. Still here, h5 is the main line, is what I play these days, but bishop h5 is... I've played this a couple of times as well. And the fun stuff starts with the move g4 here. Bishop g6, knight takes e5, and you get this kind of compensation on the king side. King g2. This is like a main position for the queen's exchange variation, the Ruy Lopez. And basically black wants to play bishop d6, knight e7, castle, play g5, knight g6, and just use this square on f4. And this king is a bit weak. This is I'm not sure this is completely fine for black when you look at it closely, but it's a lot of fun, and that's usually why I play it. You kind of need to have fun to play chess, I mean. But basically, Tryggestad doesn't go for this, he goes for d3, which is not critical at all. After f6, I think black is doing really well. Usually if white wants any advantage whatsoever, he needs to go for the critical lines, and this is not a critical line. Bishop e3, bishop d6, and I don't really like playing this type of position with black. I play e4, e5 quite a lot, but I don't really like playing this structure. But I think maybe I kind of have to deal with it, because I don't know, knight e7, c5, knight c6, knight d4. That's a standard maneuver. And in this case, this bishop on f7 would be real nice on f6 as well. But yeah, it's just a position to play. There's nothing wrong with white's position. It's not better. It's not really worse. Knight of 1. Queen d7. Yeah, I mean, very sensible play by both players. Knight h4. Obviously looking into the f5 square. Bishop e6, and he finds this interesting check. g6, queen f3. So he's trying to provoke some weakness here in f6. But black just doesn't care. He castles. And seems like the queen might get trapped, right? Rook f8, and if queen g5, h6, that queen is gone. Pretty sure the queen is gone. And well, that kind of means that this entire variation wasn't very clever at all. If it doesn't threaten anything. a3, of course white wants to open up some kind of attack by himself, b4, but it seems like black is just quicker. He goes f5, e takes, queen g5, sorry, bishop g5. This is not really the way to punish black. It feels like black is doing really well here. Rook f8, you kind of have to ask, what is the knight doing on h4 here? And I mean, these pieces are not doing too much. Okay, knight h5 looks interesting. You have a square on f6, you have some threats with bishop f6, that's true. Knight c6, c3, rook g8, bishop h6. I still kind of like black more, but well, it's complicated, but I don't really see how these pieces are supposed to attack black. And generally, if you're supposed to play f5 and you don't really get punished for it, then I think black is doing really well. And it feels like one of these pieces might even get trapped later on. I mean, maybe a move like, you don't want to move away the rook. I think rook f7 might be the move, but later on somehow you push these pieces back. I'm not completely sure how, but I don't know, bishop e7 is one way. Doesn't look too scary for black. Okay, let's look at Felix's game. Bishop takes b7. Is there a reason why you can't take with the rook on b7? I'm probably just calculating completely wrong right now, but yeah, you can't really play this, right? You take here, you go knight c7 and you just pick this one up. So that was my fault. So bishop takes b7 might be better. Unless I'm missing something again. I was even considering a move like rook a6 might be interesting. Because I mean, you take here, rook takes b8 and you have this threat, you have bishop d5 and of course you can keep playing this, but you're not going to win this with black. You have double pawns and it doesn't really matter. This should be an easy draw as well. But I don't really see how black is supposed to avoid the draw in the position we have. Okay, let's take a look at... Okay, he played this move, rook d7. Now, why won't we take on e8 here? Bishop c6, this should seal the draw. This should be an easy draw. Okay, let's look at this board. We have Erik Thurn playing Hampus Sørensen. No, sorry, I have to go back to this board. I wasn't really impressed by this move, knight f6. I don't really want to give up the bishop on d6. I think it's a very good bishop, and I fear that this bishop on b7 is going to suffer a horrible fate, just like Felix bishop did in the first round. And well, it's kind of the same idea. Felix also got in this e5, but this bishop is still a problem. D takes e5, queen takes bishop c3. White has a lovely bishop here. Bishop f3. Of course, just preventing c5, and black has to work a lot in order to get c5 in. I don't even think he can do it anymore. Bishop d4, a6, and I don't really like this. Black is very passive here. Rook c8, and if black is supposed to threaten c5 at some point, tactically, white can also even go b4 at some point, just stopping it forever. And yeah, this bishop on b7 it's no fun. Queen d1, I'm not completely sure about queen d1, but why not? I think maybe the idea could be rook c5. It's quite obvious that black is going to have to suffer for a long time here. The position is not very fun to play. Okay, so Risting resigned this game. I'm gonna have to update to get that game up here. What happened? Rook a1. He didn't even take back on g7, he took on b4 immediately. Bishop c3. bishop b3, a lot of in-between moves here, but queen d2, and he apparently blundered here. He just took the a4, and then queen d4, and he just resigned because he's losing this guy because there's a mate threatened on g7 as well. But he didn't have to do that. I mean, after queen d2, he could just go back with the rook, and I mean, the position is still horrible, but it's not, I mean, you can fight. In the game, I think, I don't know if it's tired, it's 2 rounds today, but rook takes a4, it just, it's a blunder, and yeah, the game is just over. A lot of games have finished quickly today. Maybe they're all tired. So, okay, what game should we take a look at? We can take a look at Wigner's game. After rook e7, he went into e6 here, and after knight f6, okay, this is another problem. This pawn on d5 is most certainly a weakness. Knight takes g7. Probably king takes g7 is supposed to be played now. I don't like this structure. I would never have gone for this structure, but he has to find some kind of counter player. Maybe f4 at some point, just getting this bishop active. If he manages to get this bishop active, then there's nothing wrong with the position, but he has to try something with f4. Maybe now we can just take this pawn, but still something like this, and I don't know, queen b3. Maybe not queen b3. Queen e1, and then queen e4. Queen e1 looks fine. I just remember there's a check on e3, so we have to play queen e1 immediately. Yeah, you have some kind of compensation, but I'm not sure it's enough. At least we have a very good bishop on b2. And we can take a look at Blomqvist's game as well. He allowed this structure. I'm not completely sure about it, but okay, so bishop d2. It kind of means that my entire reasoning behind bishop c3 was just crap. Bishop d2, rook a8. He plays this move c3, queen e8, so obviously black is playing on this weakness on a4. And white defends against it, rook b5, h6. I think black is playing well. I don't see any big problems for black. I'm just worried that at some point maybe queen b3 followed by a5, and well, let's just make this move. And if a5, at this point I think you can take with the rook, but if you can trade these pawns, then white is doing extremely well, because black might have the weaknesses now, but I think this is far away. I don't think Blomqvist has anything special there. One idea could be to play queen b3 and maybe bishop f4. And this looks horrible for the structure, but I mean, you're gonna win this pawn on b6. So at least you have something to work with there. Maybe it's just nothing at all, because a4 is hanging as well. I don't think black is doing too badly here. Okay, something has happened in Hob's game. After bishop h6, he didn't move the rook. I mean, you don't want to play a move like rook f7 unless you have to, so if you can find an alternative, that would be great. But bishop e7, bishop takes f8, bishop takes h4. I don't really understand what's going on. What happens if bishop takes c5? White's up an exchange, and a pawn. Okay, bishop d5. g2 is a weakness. Then this might have been very clever by black, actually. Do we have anything else? Well, bishop d5 is very difficult to meet, actually. You could play a move like g3, but it's very ugly. You don't want to make a move like g3. Probably doesn't really work out tactically either, but okay, this bishop e7 move is very clever if it works. Bishop takes f8, bishop takes h4. Let's try this. Bishop takes c5, bishop d5. There's nothing here, right? Yeah, g2 is falling. Felix is here. Probably he got the draw. Yeah, he got the draw. Congratulations. Very ambitious play. No, I'm just kidding. It's a good game.
How long was it here?
I think it was theory. It has been played up until this point, I think. I think there was one game, at least it shows one game where white played rook a6 here.
Yeah, I thought about rook a6.
Yeah.
I almost played it,
I
but
almost recommended rook takes b7, but I think that's a blunder.
yeah, yes, it's
Yeah. But okay, you just played it safe and it was an easy draw. Good game. I think maybe it's a bit frustrating for Hambleton because his opponent gets all this preparation in against him all the time and
then he told me that afterwards.
yeah. Maybe guys in Canada don't study as much theory as we do here in Sweden. I don't know if it's good or bad. Okay, let's take a look at. Okay, Vigner's game. Okay, he actually did play this move f4. I kind of think he has to play f4. Queen g8 is, well, what do you call it? This move. It's very nice move to make. I mean, we can't really prevent queen takes d5. It feels like black is better. F takes, queen takes. How bad is the endgame of the queen f3? You're down a pawn, but this bishop can become good. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, white is suffering, I think. You don't really want to make a move like king g1 either, because this queen on d5 is so strong. So yeah, it's not too much going on in these games actually. I haven't looked at this game actually. Kenny Skog playing against the Norwegian prodigy Kosen. And of course, like I said, I've studied a lot of openings together with Theodore, and we have the Grinfeld defense here, and it's interesting to see what Kosen plays against this. Okay, he plays this variation with queen a4. That's kind of frustrating because I don't really like playing against it. Knight d7 is supposed to be the best move against it, but yeah. The standard move would be bishop d7. I think Svidler played it a couple of, I mean, 2 years ago. And the idea is after queen b3 you have this move c5 and you get some interesting counterplay, but instead the move queen a3 is just better. The queen is actually really well placed on a3 because, well, it stops c5 and later on after castling you can play moves like bishop g5. But okay, I know that black has played against this variation before. Knight d7 is just better. I think this is all known theory, c5. All of this is very well known. Now I'm trying to figure out b6. Sometimes they play a6, b5, and sometimes they go b6. I'm not really sure which one you should go for here, but a6. I would probably go a6 because, well, b5 is a threat. Let's say rook c1, you can go b5, and if you take on b5, you have knight b6, protecting the rook, and next move you can take the bishop. But yeah, okay, yeah, I think it's a matter of taste. Basics shouldn't be anything worse. I mean, rook c1, bishop. Okay, the bishop will come to b7 next move. He probably just wanted to avoid this. It's kind of annoying. And now the rook is on c1, this guy isn't hanging anyway. So, e6, rook d1, bishop b7, d5. Let's place this move e5. I think this is a very typical Grinfeld position, which I think the computers always like white here, even though maybe white isn't better. Because they see like a protected pass pawn on d5 and they, well, very often at least, they value it a lot. Even though it's not so easy to play. If black has the time, he definitely wants to go knight f6, knight e8 and knight d6. If the knight gets to d6, there's nothing wrong with black's position. If it doesn't get there, then maybe white's better. But of course it's not so easy to play white's position. That's one of the problems with computers nowadays, because they kind of see this position, it's very beautiful and pretty, but what's the plan? You can't really break with f4. Usually they play very slowly with a4 and a5, but it's not too much. I mean, queen b3, h6, rook b1. Kosen is obviously preparing, black might have been preparing f5 himself, so he wants to meet it with f3. Rook b8, and now a4 comes. Not sure black should play a6 though, but anyway, queen c2, knight c4. I'm not sure I like what black has been doing here, but still, it's not so easy for white to do anything. And you don't really want to go d6 unless it's really good, because the pawn is just well blockaded here. Maybe queen c6 and the bishop back to b7. Yeah. So, like I said, Felix Tumanen just drew his game against Hamilton. We haven't looked at the final moves, but maybe I did show the final moves. So, what's going on here? We can update to get rid of some markers. So, this position wasn't really fun to play for black, and rook c5 was apparently the idea Eric had. Queen g6, and this is interesting. You could consider taking on d5 here. And probably black would play rook takes d5 and you get this structure. But I think he doesn't want to allow this because we have opposite colored bishops. Black's next move will be rook c8. Otherwise, if white gets to play rook c1, then black is pretty much losing. But it's not so easy to win this. Rook c8 will be played, I don't know, something like this. And there is some kind of decent drawing chances for black because of the opposite colored bishops. But even an endgame isn't that easy for black to defend if white's king is close, because there's some entry squares on b6, and I've seen a lot of games by Tiviaka where he wins this endgame with opposite colored bishops. It's not really fun to defend. But still, I mean, you don't have to take on d5, you can take on d5 whenever you want. Queen c2, just trades the queens instead. Rook d7, and black is fighting, but yeah, it's not going to be fun to defend this for a long time, and white is definitely not going to just give up the fight, and he's just gonna keep the position the way it is. Maybe advance some h4 on the king side, eventually maybe. Yeah, he wants to advance on the king side, g4 and h4, and just wait. And black can't do much either, he has to wait himself. So, yeah, it's not obvious how white's going to break through eventually, but black is still suffering, and he's been suffering from, well, ever since this move knight f6 at least. I think c5 here is completely fine for black. Maybe white is slightly better somehow, but I think it's fine. But when you don't get to play this move c5, now it's really bad, I think. At least practically, it's very, very difficult to play with this bishop on b7. Well, what's going on the other boards? Blomqvist. Something has happened with the structure. c4, rook b5. Okay, so he did play bishop g2 and c4. Okay, so what I said earlier, at least it wasn't completely wrong, because he's trying the same thing, trying to get this bishop, well, into play at least, and it seems like he managed to. Okay, d takes c4, d takes c4. White is slightly better here, I think. I think so, at least. I mean, moves like queen b3, just stepping up the pressure, and white has the bishop pair still. He's had the bishop pair since move 15. He's not gonna give it up for nothing, but okay, he played this move knight e4. That's interesting. Can you play knight e4? If it works, then it kind of solves most problems, because, well, first of all, we don't want to give up this bishop, we want to keep the bishop pair. But more importantly, I think knight d6 might be a problem, because then this guy has to move. This is hanging, this is hanging. So, okay, maybe we can go, I don't know, queen e2, knight d6, queen takes e8. Go for some kind of endgame like this, take, rook takes e5, but I'm still not completely convinced because we have like a4, and this pawn starts running really quickly, and this guy, it's not so dangerous. Knight e4 looks like a really strong move. Not sure what you're supposed to play now for white. I mean, you're not really in danger of losing for white, but I think the advantage is kind of disappearing, if you ever had any. Okay, let's look at Harbor. Bishop takes f8. We had this interesting tactical idea. Bishop takes h4, and basically whenever the bishop moves away to like c5, you have bishop d5, and g2 is falling, and everything's falling. So he played this move bishop g7. It looks extremely ugly, but if it works, it works. So bishop d5 looks obvious. The queen has to return somewhere. I don't know, queen d1. Whenever we can just take on g7. I don't even want to take on g7 because these pieces are so bad, but I definitely think black is supposed to win this game. Maybe this is just completely winning at this point because we can't really defend this guy anyway. We can play g3, but we can just take this guy and it's mate. Okay, so that's what he played. Okay, queen e2 is of course better. You can take her in queen f1, but this is horrible. This is horrible. No. Yeah, black should definitely win this game. I mean, f4 looks reasonable. Later on you can maybe get this knight to f5. I don't know if f3 is a threat. f3 is probably a threat. Yeah, f3 is a threat, and you have this sacrifice, and it's gonna be mate. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hauber will win this game. Feels like this round has been played very quickly. Let's look at... Okay, Kaneskog actually played very aggressively here. After knight c4, he played this move f5, which is really risky. It's maybe good, but it's also extremely risky because this king can suffer. Okay, so let's try and take it. I'm pretty sure you have to take it. And now this looks very bad for black. I really want to use it, but bishop d3 we have e4, I think, and the sacrifice doesn't really work out yet, even though the idea is always there. But I think, I don't know, you could start with a call move like f3 and next move bishop d3. This would also be terrific for white, I'm unsure. Maybe there's something immediate. g4 doesn't really strike me as the move you want to play to punish f5. f3 looks good enough. Yeah, f3 looks good. But I don't want to see this like call moves like f3. If you play f3, then I don't like this at all, because you can take here and maybe knight f6 and suddenly you get some play. Maybe you're even threatening stuff like taking on e4 and bishop f5, but okay, you have to calculate d6 stuff as well. So yeah, but f5, I really want to take that one on f5. It definitely feels like the move to make. And what else is going on? Let's update to see what's going on. Blomqvist is still thinking after 94. I think it's a good moment to stop and think, because I'm not sure he has an advantage anymore. In this game, Stefansson against Tukayev waits a pawn down. But he's defending rather well. Very well, I would say. Queen f3. Good move, I think. I think this endgame, I think he's doing everything right here. Vignir, Vatna, Stefansson, because this rook on e4, it's really good actually. White is preparing rook e1. I mean, this bishop, these rooks, he's a pawn down, but he should be able to draw this, I think. Maybe knight f6 is what you should play, but I mean, it doesn't really solve the problem. Just move the rooks and rook e2. And then follow up by rook e1. And black isn't going to take the draw immediately, but I mean, the position should be a draw. And, well, the bishop on b2 is strong enough to hold this game, I'm sure. Yeah. What happens in Philip's game? f6, c5. We left the game around here. Queen h3 was played. Rook c8. Knight g3. So obviously white wants to jump into f5 with this guy. It feels like Philip wants to play b5 and c4 and try to attack this guy on c1. But I'm not really sure. What is he going to play against knight f6? Because knight e7 is a threat. Is he gonna take on f5? But then e takes f5. And this is a really good bishop. I don't want to do this. This bishop is too strong. Yeah, knight f5. I'm not really sure what Philip is planning here. Maybe he's planning something a bit more desperate, like c4 immediately. Take and knight takes c4. Take, queen takes. This might be something. This is weak, d3 is on the way. Rook f2, I mean, I don't know, maybe d3, maybe take on a2. But suddenly, I mean, this sacrifice looks like something black should play, because suddenly you kind of notice the rook is on h6, the queen is over here. It takes a couple of moves for white to get the pieces back into play. And if you really want to do something, you have to do something quickly when the pieces are over here. c4 looks like the way to play here. Everything else looks too slow. I mean, knight f5, not really sure. I want to go c4 and I want to sacrifice a piece, but okay, maybe I'm just too aggressive again, but I really want to go c4 immediately. Yeah, nothing too much is going on actually. They're all pretty much thinking. I think I'm gonna take a small break. Oh wait, I found a move. No break for me. Queen takes g7, queen f1, f4. Okay, so you're threatening f3 and the sacrifice on g3 obviously. So king h2, played by Tryggestad. It looks really bad for white, but I don't see the immediate win. Maybe we just go slowly, knight e7, knight f5, and win the slow way. I like the sacrificing way, but I don't see how it works. But I mean, let's say the knight is on f5, now suddenly f3 is a threat. And I mean, you can sacrifice on g3 and stuff. Yeah, this has to be winning. I mean, these three pieces are definitely stronger than the two rooks. I mean, what is this guy doing on a1? I don't even know how white is supposed to play to get this rook into play. Everything just looks too slow. Haven't really looked how Mihailov is doing. He played a really good game this morning. And okay, it appears we have a result. We have a draw after 94, and Blomqvist just accepted it, and it seems like a reasonable thing to do because he has no advantage. He realized that. And what else? Of course, Mihailov. I was gonna look at how he is doing. I have to calculate. It's equal material, right? The last move was e7 to e5. And isn't white doing rather well here? I'm not completely sure. I'm not sure who's doing rather well, but this guy on g7 doesn't look very good right now, but it can become really good on f4 if it gets there. Okay, so queen b4 was played in the game. And I don't think you want to drop this pawn, so maybe you should Should just take here. Play this endgame. This guy on d6 is weak, but I don't know, like rook a8. It looks, I don't know, maybe equal. It's kind of difficult to evaluate these positions when you just jump right into a new position, but okay. Coulson. Yeah, he plays the variation I anticipated with e takes f5, g takes f5, f3, and bishop d3, and I think black is just much worse here. It feels like Kenneth Cook has been outplayed actually. No, this doesn't look good at all. This guy on f5 is gonna be hard to defend, and I mean, a move like f4 is positionally it's horrible. Just a move like bishop f2 and the square on e4. Yeah, this is positionally it's losing. Maybe you have to go for something like this, but I mean, you don't really want to. Okay, so Harbour plays for this knight e7 stuff, like I expected. What else is going on? Mihailov traded queens, and he played rook a8. And I don't know, maybe rook b7. It feels rather likely with a draw as a result. Maybe white wins this pawn on d6, but black gets this one. Yeah, I think a draw is a reasonable result. But maybe Mihailov is pushing, I don't know. You can also take a look at Hampus obviously doing. He still suffers the same kind of position like he had before. Knight e7 is a clever idea. He wants to go knight f5, getting rid of this guy, but rook c5 just prevents it. And yeah, I think the squeeze is coming. Rook c1, and soon just advance on the king side. Haven't really looked at the final board. We have Arden playing against Tico Sahil, but okay, what's going on here? We have equal material, but I think white is doing well. Black's king looks a bit shaky on g8. It's not like any sacrifices on g6 work, but the king is still shaky, and I mean the structure isn't very nice. He's also suffering for a horrible bishop on d7. Maybe he can break free with e5 at some point, but then the king gets even worse. So yeah, white is doing well here as well. Okay, Philip actually went for my idea with c4. He's usually the calm type of player. He would usually play very strategically, and you know, it doesn't play extremely aggressive, but here I think he has to, because knight f5 was so strong. I think he really has to sacrifice this piece. Let's look what's going on. Queen takes, threatening a mate. You have to defend it. Rook f2 is forced, I guess. Now we have a couple of different moves. We can take here, we can play d3. That's probably about it. Maybe queen c3, because we're threatening like queen e1 stuff. Sorry. Not here. Queen e1. Let's try queen c3 actually. Because this might be an idea and this might be an idea. Can you go... Oh, we can't really play queen h1 because this guy is hanging as well. Yeah, white really has to defend carefully, because d3 is also another idea. King d1, but then d3 is just even better. Maybe the sacrifice is just very good for black. D takes c4 is played, and if knight takes c4 here, can we decline the sacrifice? Maybe knight f5? But then you have to consider moves like knight a3. c2 is hanging, d3 is on the way. Maybe d3 is not in the way because queen is protecting it. But I mean, rook f2, we have rook c3 followed by d3. Yeah, the piece sacrifice actually came on c4. It's not every day that I get to see Philip sacrificing a piece, but it's fun to see when it happens. Okay, so yeah, it's not really time trouble in any of the games yet. Okay, I wanna see what happened in this game. Kianisko actually played e4, he just gave up a pawn. And then he played b5, okay. I still don't like it, but he has to do something to create some kind of counterplay. The position is probably close to losing, but I mean he has to create something. Take, I don't know, d6 looks like an idea, even knight a3. Knight d2, knight f3 might be another idea. I mean, knight could, sorry, later jump into h4, and I mean, I think objectively his position is losing. He's just fighting, and I mean, looking at the clock, he's on 3 minutes. Carlsen has played very quickly, he has a very good position. Yeah, he has some problems. Okay, so most players are actually thinking here, so I'm gonna take a short break while I still have the chance. So, alright, I'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes, I suppose. Okay. Okay, now I think I'm back, and well, I had a short break and I'm gonna keep looking at the games, mostly because nothing too much happened in the games. I'm gonna keep looking at Stefansson's game, of course. He had this position where black has a hard time like getting somewhere in the position, but white plays really well here, just keeping up the pressure. He's not going for anything, and finally we had this position when, of course, black can take on d3, but then he has to allow this rook e7, and this is just going to end in a draw. And well, king f7 tries to play for a win, I guess, with rook a5, a6, rook a3. It's not perfect for white, but it should be enough to draw. King e6, king f3, rook d4, rook b3. White is slightly passive, and black is the one pushing, but I mean, it's not gonna be enough. I think Stefansson has defended really well in this game. King e3 is about to be played. I guess king d5, but yeah, black can't really win this game. I don't really see how he's supposed to win it, at least. Well, okay, he played b5. Which is interesting, but I still don't think it's enough. Probably, if you go a3 at some point, he wants to go a5. Get something like this, and I don't know, rook c3, king d5, king e3. Something like this. Maybe you have time to play c5 at some point. And you have two weaknesses, but I mean, how are you gonna keep playing this for a win? I'm not sure. I think Stefansson is gonna draw this without too many troubles, actually, which is of course a great result for him. And well, let's see what's going on Tryggestad. He has been lost for quite a while, I think, but knight f3, b4. Yeah, it feels like anything would actually win. I'm thinking, why can't we play bishop g3 check? And if you take, we have queen takes, king h1, we have f3. Yeah, this is gonna be mate. So maybe bishop g3 we just go king h1, but no f3. Isn't this completely winning immediately? Like take here, take on g2, this is mate. I don't really see it. I think bishop g3 just wins on the spot, actually. And I'm kind of surprised that black didn't go for it. I mean, it's fairly obvious, but maybe he has something even. It doesn't look like he has anything better. f3, g3, bishop g5. Sure, black is of course winning, but I mean, that variation was just killing immediately. h5, queen h1. This is desperate. h4 I guess is winning. Bishop. I'm sort of disappointed he didn't go for bishop g3. It would have been a nice ending to this game. But he's still winning, of course. And take a look at Philip's game. We had this piece sacrifice on c4, which I think is really nice, because I didn't really see anything after b takes c4, queen takes, threatening mate. You have rook f2, but then this move queen c3, and this is a big threat, this is a threat, and d3. I don't really see how to defend against all of it, and probably it's not possible. Yeah, I don't think it's possible to defend against this. So probably he didn't see any way to defend it either, but knight f5, knight a3, and suddenly this king on c1 is gonna get mated. It deserves to be mated, I guess. Rook f2, I guess, has to be played because c2 was hanging, and doesn't he have anything better than knight takes f6? Like I said, both Blomqvist and Lindgren really likes to take pawns, but I'm not sure I want to take that pawn right now. It's probably still really good for black, but don't we have anything better? Like d3 at some point, or even knight c5, threatening here. Threatening maybe knight takes b. Okay, sorry, didn't see queen here, but knight c5 still looks good. I mean, d3 is in there. Maybe he was afraid of knight e7 stuff, but okay, it's something to calculate. But knight takes f6 doesn't strike me as the best solution. White actually took on d4 here. E takes d4. And of course he's gonna take on f6 with one of the rooks, probably this rook. So it doesn't drop this guy, but you can take on c2 if you want to here. Like something like this, and queen takes, and like positionally white is pretty much losing because this bishop is really bad. The king is really bad. I mean, you can check once, but it's not gonna matter. This should be winning for black. Yeah, it seems like black is winning this game. Queen takes f6. You're a pawn up. I mean, the king is so weak. This guy is bad. If the rook moves anywhere, you can play rook c8 at some point. Queen f4 is always... No, I think black has to be winning this game. Okay, maybe this is a clever move order. They start with queen g3 check, and after rook king 8, we have the same variation, but the queen is probably better on g3 than on h3. And okay, we have another result. Actually, Harbour won his game against Trygstad. How did everything collapse so quickly? h5, h4, of course, g4. Okay, this is actually very, very pretty. Knight g3. And did he even play the move rook e4? Really? I'm not sure. Looks like a good moment to resign. Maybe he hasn't resigned. They keep making moves. Bishop takes e4. D takes e4. They're still making moves, so he hasn't resigned. It's the program again, but I guess after g2 he really can. He didn't play g2. That would have been neat, but he played the check first. I think he should resign after king f1. Yeah, okay, so let's look at... Let's look at Mihailov's game. He's in an endgame, and still looks about equal. Very, very big risk of a draw here, I think. Yeah, it feels like a draw. You're gonna keep fighting, I guess. Mihailov is the highest rated player, I think, and he wants to win the game. Oh, it seems like Kanisko actually lost this game. It's not really surprising that he was losing, but I thought he would make up some kind of counterplay. Queen e5, and, well, c4. I'm not sure c4 is the best move, but looks good enough apparently. Bishop takes c5. So he's trying to create some kind of counterplay here, but... Okay, so queen h5. He's just losing too much material, I guess. c5, yeah, this is definitely resignable. Okay, this is a nice, cute way to finish the game. Bishop d4 check, and rook takes d4, and it's time to resign. Even the queen is actually trapped, when I think about it. Well, good game for Carlsen. He actually came back after having quite a disastrous start of the tournament, but yeah, he won a nice game today, and Kenneskog, well, he didn't play his best game. I've seen him play much better than this, actually. Well, this e5, it's interesting, but I think you really need to really quickly get this knight to d6. You can't go for this f5 idea, it's way too risky. And when he actually played f5, I think already here it's close to losing, or just losing. Okay, let's look at this game. How did the rook end up on a8 again? I'm gonna have to go back a few more moves. Rook c5, rook d8. Black is basically just waiting for white to do anything. h3. Yeah, why not? Maybe I should go h4 later on, but you can always go one step at a time. King h2. Rook e5. Yeah, this is rather annoying because bishop c5 is always a threat, and I mean, this guy on b7 is also not a pretty piece to play with. Rook d8. Bishop b6, and isn't there a better square than a8 for that rook? Maybe there isn't, but if rook a8 is the best move, then black's position is really horrible. What's black's next move here? Maybe it's actually threatening to go knight d5 back here. Maybe. But still, I mean, white isn't winning anything immediately. Maybe it's not completely unlikely that we will get some kind of scenario where white will take this knight and win the pawn on c6, and we get a rook endgame with 4 pawns against 3. But in that case, white's rook will be very active on c6, so it's probably winning anyway. But yeah, I mean, black has to keep fighting. It's bishop a5. It's just keeping up all the pressure, I guess. Knight d5. Now, what's happening? He has to trade a rook, right? I'm not sure you wanna trade a rook. But maybe we have to. Let's take here. Okay, this is far from obvious, actually. I guess you have to keep playing the way we always did, like maybe h4, maybe g4. Very slowly. I think maybe white pressed away too quickly when he played this entire line with rook e5, but I don't know. Okay, so you wanna show your game? Okay. Yeah, sure. You can. Okay, so yeah. We have another guest here. We have Martin Hauber, who won his game against Andreas Tyrgestad. And I don't know, did you expect this variation from him?
Yeah, I saw that he played it, and yeah, I had something interesting with bishop g4 here.
Yeah, you played this line with bishop h5.
Yeah, and then white usually has to play g4.
Yeah, you always get some nice compensation in this line with queen h4. I guess this has been played a couple of times, but
yeah, well, it's a position.
Yeah, I always prefer black because it's easier to play, but I'm not sure. It's interesting, but d3 isn't really critical, I guess. Now it's just lead to some kind of middle game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a position.
Yeah. And, well, I don't know what's... I thought you played pretty normal moves, both of you around here.
Of course, obviously he wants to put something on f5, but I think he's overdoing it around here.
You think knight h4 is too much, or...?
I don't know. I think it's a gamble considering I haven't made a decision about my king.
Yeah. Were you planning going short or long here?
I don't know actually. I wanted to see if he went knight h4 because he seemed very focused on that f5 square.
So maybe white should just make some waiting move here.
Yeah, like c3 or a3, something like that.
Yeah.
b3.
I agree. Maybe castling long is a bit risky if white gets to play b4 later on, but...
Yeah. But when he misplaces all his pieces.
Yeah, knight h4.
I mean, it's interesting.
I'm guessing he didn't see, when he went for this variation, he didn't see that he couldn't take on f6 or...
Well, maybe he can. I'm not sure.
Oh, you mean queen g7 after?
Yeah, queen g7.
Oh, okay, I forgot about that move.
And then maybe h5, actually, I thought was interesting.
Okay, can you take on g6?
Rook f to g8.
Oh, okay,
like
and we can take here.
Bishop. Oh, wait, e5's hanging.
Yeah.
I'm maybe messing up the lines right now. Anyway, rook f df8, I wasn't even sure that was the move to play. Knight c6 also looks a little promising.
Oh, okay. So, well, you're threatening bishop e7.
Yeah.
I guess he has to go back.
Bishop e7.
Yeah, it's still a problem. Yeah, his pieces are strangely placed.
And then he maybe had knight f3, and there may be some tricks on h3. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he played a3 anyway, and I thought after f5 your position was just very good here.
Yeah, very comfortable.
Yeah, and I mean his pieces Not really sure what they're doing
Bishop
anymore.
g5 is ambitious, of course, take an e7, take an f5, but when it doesn't, I mean, rook f8, I'm just,
Yeah, a knight h5 is still very ambitious, but
yeah,
the piece is still, well, if it doesn't work, then maybe
Well-
white's just losing, but
yeah, around here I was pretty sure that my position had to be really, really good. I just had to somehow
yeah.
hit on g2 and some line far off.
Yeah, I agree, I like this move. I didn't see this move bishop e7 by myself.
No, I actually considered rook f7 because bishop e7 is a gamble, of course, but I mean it's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, if it works and it appears to work, then it's
Yeah.
just very good for you.
Yeah, of course. Bishop takes f8. He has to play bishop takes h4. Here I thought he had to play g3.
Yeah, I also thought g3, but I mean, just looking at the pieces, I assumed
Yeah,
he was losing
it
somehow.
It looks
It's,
ugly, but bishop d5,
bishop d5.
queen e2,
Yeah,
and then here I didn't know what to do. Of course, I can take an f8, take an g4, rook g8, check, knight g3, and f4, king h2, and then takes an g3. And I thought black had to be better, but I wasn't sure it was that easy. Bishop e6 here, probably.
yeah,
Queen f1. But I mean, it's very much a position. He's very much alive.
yeah. I think maybe can you play like e4 first,
Takes.
bishop e6. But okay, maybe now you have rook d1.
Yeah,
Yeah, but okay.
yeah. I mean, it's a line.
Yeah.
And I also had some interesting alternatives.
Yeah, you didn't have to go for this.
No.
Anyway, there are a lot of interesting alternatives around here.
Yeah.
But around bishop g7, I just assumed it was just completely over.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, yeah, it takes on g7, and
Yeah, I think this is.
the pieces are just superior to the rooks.
Yeah. Well, f4, of course. All of this was quite expected.
Yeah.
Here, I actually thought you would play bishop g3. I didn't see anything wrong with bishop g3 here.
F takes g3.
And
I
queen
looked at
takes,
king h1.
and f3.
Oh. Okay, that would have been an improvement.
Well, I think it's a matter of choice. I mean, you win either way.
I just looked at f takes g3 and queen h6, which fails to g4.
Sorry, where?
Queen bishop g3, f takes g3, f takes g3, king h1, queen h6,
Oh, you mean
which
this line?
fails to g4.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I understand.
But yeah, okay, that would have been a bit
Yeah,
better.
well, the way you played it was quite aesthetic as well.
Yeah.
And, well, I was quite surprised that he played on around here after g4, but
Actually, if you go a little back there was a nice line after h5. He plays h4. I don't know if you saw that.
no, I didn't really look
Knight,
at this.
knight takes h4, and then g takes, and bishop f4 check. King g1,
King.
g1.
It's
Oh wait.
not really possible.
Oh wait. Oh, it's just made it two then. Oh, Jesus.
Well, I think pretty much everything is
yeah,
winning.
yeah, everything's winning, of course, but I may need to go home and train my tactic a little. But of course, h4 looks great.
Did you mean h4 at this point, maybe?
No, the black after queen h1.
Okay. Yeah, well, this is
just winning.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame that you have to move those pawn spots.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if there's a mate, I'd prefer to give it, but
yeah. Did he resign after bishop e3 or did
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
g2 check.
Yeah. Well, very nice game.
Yeah.
Pretty convincing, I think. Well, you got a pretty good opening after. Well, he played knight h4 and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And well, let's take a look at what's going on the other boards. There's still some games going on here. There are too many wires here. Okay, let's look at... Wigner is still playing. I don't really think Black is trying to win this. Or is he? Well, rook d5. He's trying for some rook e5, king d4 stuff, but he's not gonna win this. Like rook c2. What is Black playing for? They made 50 moves, so I think they can offer a draw at this point. But yeah, he played rook c2. Yeah, Wigner is playing very well. I mean, Black is not gonna win this game. It's gonna be a draw. Well, of course, yeah, Hobber won his game. We also have Philip Lindgren playing. What happened? Queen g3, king a8, rook takes f6. We actually had this variation, which I looked at, which I consider to be winning for Black. Rook c7. What's wrong with playing d3? You're threatening queen a1, but probably e5 is the move to make here. But now you can play d2, right? Because king takes, you have queen d8, picking up rook. And if you have to make a move like king d1, it doesn't really strike me as critical. Now, still, something like just queen g6 or something threatening to enter on b1. This has to be winning. Why didn't he play d3? Maybe queen b6 like he played is very good as well. But I mean d3 just to killing. I have to just check. What happens if you take this pawn? Check here. King. We can just take here, right? And take g2 next move. This has to be winning. Why don't you play d3, Philip? I have to ask him after the game. Queen b6. And, well, king b2. Knight b5. Rook c2. I mean, the position is winning anyway, but d3 looked much better. Still, can I play d3 here? Because queen takes, you have this check on f6, and suddenly this king is kind of, I mean, king c1. You don't really want to play king c1. Maybe even have this really pretty move rook d8, and if you take this one, you have a mate on a1. And I don't really see another defense to queen a1, so maybe rook. Okay, maybe we're not even threatening taking the queen actually because of mate, but we're threatening queen a1 for sure. This looks winning as well. d3. Do we have an alternative? I mean, you can play. This doesn't really work out. We have a check on a3. Why don't you play d3 this time, Philip? I'm not sure. I'm really starting to get tired. 2 games in one day is quite a lot. Okay, let's see what Eric is up to. Hampus is still fighting. I guess this is the kind of games that are really useful for players like Hampus and Felix because, well, apparently they don't have the experience so far to, well, realize when you have to play c5 and not, because this bishop is so bad. And I mean, if you lose a game like this horribly, you kind of realize how important it is to play c5 at the right moment. So in that sense, I'm kind of hoping for Hampus to learn that lesson because it's really important. You can't really, against strong players, you can't really hold this kind of positions. I mean, yeah, okay, they made 40 moves. So, no time trouble. And these guys, why are they still playing? What are they hoping for? I mean, it's Champions League tonight. Why are you still playing? I think Arsenal is playing Bayern Munich. And so Arsenal is playing Bayern Munich, yeah. And isn't Barcelona playing tonight as well? Now it says that Philip Lindgren won his game, but that can't be right. He didn't make any moves. Unless he won on time. I don't think he did. No. They're playing. Queen a5? I mean, I see their moves and it looked good, but I mean, is that really the best move? Maybe queen e5? Can you try queen a5? You're just covering some dark squares. And like a d3 might actually be a problem here, but I don't know what's going on here. Maybe you can even take like queen takes g5. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work really, but I kind of wanna try. Maybe it does work actually. Why did he play queen a5? Doesn't d3 just win immediately? After queen a5 he went queen d3 instead. I'm not sure if I'm the one who's tired and keeps missing stuff or if they are. It's probably them. I'm gonna say them. Okay, let's say rook d2. I'm not sure if he's making any progress here. He traded a rook, but is that really to white's advantage? Who knows those stuff? Russian grandmaster seems to know that stuff, but I don't. Apparently f5. Mahalo is still trying to win this or something. I'm not sure who's trying to win this game actually. Shouldn't draw. Still. I have no idea why Stefansson and Tukayev are still playing. Let's look at Philip's game. I'm pretty sure in this position, rook c7, what was the problem with d3 here? It looks amazing. This is a very big threat. So e5, right? e5 and maybe just d2 check, and he has to go king d1, and I'll just move the queen somewhere dangerous. Queen g6. Did I mention queen g6 last time? I don't remember. This looks really good anyway. How are you gonna step queen b1? I don't think you can. Maybe there's something like, oh wait, b7 is hanging. Of course. I didn't see that b7 was hanging. That's quite important. That explains why d3 was not played. So queen b6. Sorry, Philip, but okay, let's try one more time. Why don't you play d3 here? You're obviously threatening the rook. You're threatening queen d4, so you pretty much have to take it. Then queen f6 check. And the king has to move somewhere. And, well, king b1 loses an exchange. So, king c1, and then rook d8. Can you make a move like e5? e5? I'm not sure. Feels like it shouldn't work, but maybe it does work. Queen f4, you can play king. Where can we put the king really? King b1, knight a3, king b2. Okay, I have no idea what's going on anymore. Queen a5 was played. Black did not make two moves in a row. Or Philip is a cheater, but he's not a cheater. There's something wrong with the transmission. So queen a5, queen d3, knight c3. Obviously very good threatening this guy, but a3 protects that guy. And how do we make progress here? I think the pawn on d4 is hanging at the moment, even though we have this some tactical tricks with queen takes a3 and knight b5. I have no idea what's going on actually. I mean, why not? We have to play a calm move at some point. Rook d8, just protect the pawn. It was a long time ago since we protected a pawn, so let's do it. Maybe at some point white should play e5 just to get this bishop into play. It might be worth a pawn just to get it into play, but actually, why don't we play e5 immediately? Alright, we can't take on c3 because it's check. Okay, so we played the move queen e5 instead. It looks good enough. Actually, it looks really good. But what happens after rook d2? He played rook f2. I think the players are really getting tired, mostly because I'm getting really tired. I'm worried about this game. This might be the game that won't let me go home tonight. And no, I'm kidding. I can go home when I want to, but they can play for a really long time. I think it's the arbiter's problem mostly. He can't go home tonight. But okay, Stefansson, Tokayev. That's also a problem. I don't know why they're still playing. No one has done anything in the last 20 moves. Well, they haven't really achieved anything, I think. Yeah, this is gonna be a draw. Okay, so Philip just made 40 moves, so no time troubles there. And they also had 5 seconds to spare. So that's probably why he didn't make d3 or anything like that, because that requires some calculation, and you don't really want to make those calculations when you have 5 seconds on clock. So Mihailov, is he getting anywhere? Nope. Looks like a draw. Feels like a position where no one can really improve anything. This is a commentator's nightmare. What am I supposed to say about these positions? Rook d8. Okay, let's try taking this pawn. Probably doesn't work because, well, Philip allowed it, but let's try queen h2. It looks active and that's apparently good. Well, rook f2. Maybe we can try annoying with queen g1, and we have to move this rook somewhere. We can't move the queen because we still have this tactic and knight d1 check, but rook d2 has to be played. And it feels like there's something here. Black is winning somehow. I'm just gonna find out why. Well, we at least have this check if we want to get some kind of endgame and pick up a pawn, but I mean, I'm not sure this is winning. Maybe it is actually, but it doesn't look like anything clear, and this knight on c3 is quite good, so we don't want to trade it. Taking on f7 is possible. Should be. Is there anything better than... no. Not this time. Okay, so here, rook f2. Queen h4 is another alternative if you want to pick up this pawn anyway, because we still can't defend this way because there's a tactic on d1 picking up the queen, but we're just gonna move the rook anyway and then take here. And yeah, this is of course very good for black, but I still think he's looking for something more. And still it's white to move, and I mean, they just made 40 moves, so he's gonna be thinking for a while. Well, what else is going on? What am I supposed to say when they don't make any moves? They have too much time. It should be a rapid tournament. I would always have something to say in a rapid tournament. Okay, Sebastian played f4. I think he's trying to win. He wants to push this pawn to g4 at some point, make some weakness on e4 and g4, but I feel like this pawn on a6 should be enough to draw the game. And I mean, if you're not careful, you might even lose. No, I'm not gonna lose, but yeah. Could it be that Stefansson is trying to win this game on time? I actually hope it is. That would be some kind of excitement, because right now I have no idea what they're trying to achieve. I mean, king e3, right? Okay, actually there is some idea with trying to bring the rook or something here, but I mean with the king on e3 it still doesn't work because you just take it. I'm still just trying to find out some kind of winning plan. Otherwise just rook c2 is always a move. Okay, nothing special going on anywhere. Is Eric just thinking? Eric is really just thinking here. I think it would be good to play rather quickly with white here, because well, you're not gonna win the position immediately, so you're gonna have to combine both the position and the board and with the clock and try to squeeze black psychologically and in every way. I mean, you have to use the clock as well. I think g4, h4. I'll probably start with h4, but I wouldn't be thinking as much as Eric appears to be doing. He's down on 13 minutes against 23. It's not impossible that black just holds this position, but he's gonna be suffering for a long time. I'm actually out of water. So I don't know. Okay, we had another move by Stefansson. I still don't understand what they're doing, but who am I to blame them? I think. Okay, I actually took on f7. Okay, something actually happens in one game. Finally, take on f7, queen h2. And I'm guessing rook f2 has to be played, right? No, actually not. He played queen d2. I don't really like that move because, well, this is still a pin. And also, if you play a move like queen g1, later on you're threatening a mate, but still I realized that rook f1 might be possible. So queen d2, is it okay? You could take on e4, but I'm not sure I want that pawn. Maybe I do want that pawn on e4. And, well, we have to move the queen somewhere, right? Let's say queen c2. But there's also this idea of playing d3. Kind of annoying. So queen e2, perhaps. And then knight back. No, we can't go back with the knight because we're just check and we pick up the queen, but what can we play here then? Okay, maybe we shouldn't take on e4. That's a pawn that white wants to get rid of anyway. I don't really see it. I mean, white's starting to threaten moves like e5 and the bishop gets really good on this diagonal. I'm just happy that something's finally happening in this game. I wanna go watch the soccer game. Okay. So White actually brought the bishop back to f1, so he's trying to, what would you say, trying to really get Black's king out of there. But I mean, you're not gonna get there. I think this is a good time for Mihailov just to take a draw here. Like if you go to g1, you just go rook a1 anyway, and you can't really avoid it. I think this is a good moment to take a draw. Otherwise, he might end up losing this game. So just take the draw. Let me go home. So I guess the game started at 5 minutes ago. I don't think Arsenal has any good chances, but yeah, the games aren't that interesting. I just wanna get out of here actually. No, it's fun commentating. It's just I don't know what to say when they're not making moves. How did the king get to d4 and why? What? Is Black pushing? For the first time in, well, in this game? King f4. Why did the rook end up? What's going on? Rook a2? I'm not sure why I did rook a6. I would just go rook c2 back. But now king d4 is an idea. And why did he put the rook there? Why not put it on a2 so you can play rook c2? I don't understand this. Rook b3, g5, rook a3. Okay, maybe it's still a draw, but I mean, Black is getting closer and closer. I mean, g3, I mean, you can just wait. I don't see exactly how to make progress, but Black has definitely come closer to something. I don't see exactly how to proceed here, but maybe it's still a draw. But I mean, this is extremely unnecessary. I mean, earlier it was just an easy draw. I wasn't even sure what they were playing for, but I mean, this is suddenly it's kind of lucky that we have these moves. Otherwise, it's losing. Okay, so something started to happen here. Okay, g4 was played. It feels like Black is getting closer and closer to win here. I haven't figured out how to win it yet, but okay, I have an idea. After rook b3, let's get to this position. Like here, check here, and okay, maybe that's unnecessary. Let's try. I want to get the rook to the a file quickly. Okay, let's try this. Rook f8. I guess white has to go rook a3. Let's go rook f7. The rook has to stay here, and now we go rook a7. And how do we stop rook a2? We can't go rook b2 because of king c3, obviously. So this just looks losing, right? Is white suddenly losing this game? Looks like he's losing. I don't see a defense. Rook f8, rook f7. You could just start with rook f7 if you want to. I mean, the idea is the same. How did he achieve this? I have no idea. Maybe he's just tired, Vignir. It's been a long day. I'm tired. Okay, let's see. Rook f7. He did play rook f7. He's losing. This just looks absolutely lost. Rook a3, rook f8. I have no idea how he managed to do this, but it looks like he's losing. He can't wait passively, he has to do something with the rook immediately. Like rook a6. But then, I don't know, check. And rook e3. This looks losing actually. I have no idea how he managed to end up in this. Okay, he went for this exact variation, rook a6. He realized that he was about to lose actually. Could even play passively. No, he can't really play passively with rook c8, but rook f6. Rook a3. I'm not sure what he's doing now. Is he trying to confuse white? It really feels like white is losing here, but it's gonna take a while. And Mihailov, okay, he's figuring out if he should take the draw or not. He has much better time, but I mean, bishop h3 is such a big threat, and yeah, he's not gonna be able to win this game. I think he should take the draw. And that would leave, okay. So I'm gonna update. Gonna have to take a look at Philip's game. Let's see if we have this position after queen h2, queen d2, and play this move knight d1 check. It's quite obvious that we have to. Maybe we don't. But okay, this is the natural line. Queen takes d1, queen takes g2, queen c2, and then if you trade, you're not getting anything, so you have to keep the queens on the board. Queen g4, and it feels like we're supposed to have counterplay. Queen c7, we kind of have to go like rook b8 or something, or at least in the end we have to go. But then what? Okay, maybe. I think Philip must have had something much better than this. Was there something? I'm not sure about this knight takes f6. Doesn't look like a pawn you wanna take. But of course, they still have time. This is the interesting board. We have Stefansson Tukayev, and for some reason Stefansson appears to be, well, very close to losing now. I have no idea what he was doing with his rook. King d2. Now we just need some really good moves, and I think it's resignable. So rook e3. Does this win? Take, check. We can't really go to king c2 because of no, we actually can. We can't play this line because h2 and the rook just goes back, or even rook d6, rook d1. Sorry, rook d3, king c2 is possible. But what about like rook f3 and just? I don't like this. It seems like they keep going back and forth. Maybe there's no win. I'm pretty sure there's a win somewhere, but I mean, Tukayev doesn't seem to find it. Keeps going back and forth, rook e8, rook e3, rook a3, rook f3, king e2. And now what? Yeah. It's this close to losing for Stefansson, but he's still fighting. Okay, so what did Mihailov actually do here? He played rook a1. White didn't go king f2, he went for this and they repeated the position anyway. I think both players agree that they have to take the draw. Okay, he didn't take on d1. He played king b1. And what is he up to this time? Why can't he play? Okay. Maybe queen g1 isn't so spectacular. We have rook f1 and we have to go back to c3 and yeah, this is nothing special, I guess. King b1. Okay, so after knight e3, of course we have to check. Can we take on d4? No, we can't. It's not even mate. We have queen b8. So we can't take on d4. Oh, we played knight e3. Oh yeah, of course, we played knight e3. I got confused for a while. Okay, Tokayev did something, finally. King e2, c5. Finally, rook b3, king takes c5. Is this winning? Maybe. I mean, allowing these pawns to advance this far is extremely dangerous, but I mean, up until this point at least, it should be a very easy draw. I have no idea what happened when he put the rook a3. I don't understand this move, rook a3. What's wrong with just going back rook a2 and putting the rook on c2? I don't see how to... Okay, maybe this is not so easy actually. Rook e6, king d2, rook c3, rook... and you have this check, and you win as black. Okay, maybe this was not so easy. Then where did he go wrong? Is it just bad all the time? I don't know. Yeah, it's very close to losing, but maybe it's not yet losing. He's still fighting very good Stefansson. But I mean, it's a very difficult position to play. At least black has very low time, and it doesn't get any more time, I think so. So he has to play rather quickly. King b5, so he's trying to get the king just all the way over here. And that might actually be winning. Because we can't really prevent it. The king can't really move this way because rook f2. We can't really go rook a1 because b3 is winning. And I certainly don't think so, but white has to try running with this pawn quickly. But I don't really see how that would win. I mean, d4, we don't really have to care about it. Like king c4, d5, just king c3 or something. Yeah, it seems like Tokayev might actually win this game. And did Philip win? No, he didn't win, right? You have to update. It says that that white resigned after knight e3, but we can't resign that early, right? Why would you resign already? Okay, so this guy is obviously very bad, so we have to go rook f2, I think. And then this check looks very good. King a2 is forced because king b2 we can take on f2, so we have to go king a2. And why do we resign here? Knight d1. I'm not sure. Did he even resign here after knight e3? Feels like I'm missing something completely ridiculously easier. Okay, maybe a move like rook c8 is actually a bit annoying. It's a bit difficult to stop everything. I'm not sure he resigned, but I'll keep updating to see what happened in that game. And in this game, Stefansson is running with the d-pawn, like he should, like he has to. And Philip won his game. It says he won his game. Yeah, I'm even too tired to see why he resigned, and something has happened in this game as well. Rook c2. So probably White was just frustrated, he didn't get anywhere, so he took on d5. And he went for this line anyway, but I'm not sure this is so easy to win. It's very risky to play with black, but is it that easy to win with white? Bishop g3. I mean, you really want to get the king closer to the center. Like, we want the king on d2, not on h2. And eventually, I mean, it's kind of difficult for black to get anywhere. We can't move the bishop anywhere because of this pawn. The rook has to like keep itself here, and king f8 can't really be happening. So, what's stopping white from just walking all the way over here? Maybe even this way. If it gets to b4, then white's probably winning this. Most definitely winning this, but yeah, you have to find some way to stop it, or at least try to stop it. Okay, knight rook d8 is interesting, but I mean rook a8, I guess. Rook a8 must be a good move, because now king f8 we have this check. Rook e8 we have another check. And now just rook a7 back, I guess. And we will want some time. Because the thing is, if the king gets to... Okay, I didn't play that, but I mean if the king gets here, let's say we trade the rooks. This is not so easy for black to hold, I think. King c3. We have to keep an eye on this pawn as well, so let's try g6. And now, well, basically the bishop is running out of squares. So king here. Eventually we'll play b4. The bishop you can't do anything. King c7. The bishop will move. King b7. You will pick up this guy. I'm starting to think that b4 might have been a mistake, because when you take here bishop d7, you can't really play a4. Yeah, maybe you can even play a4 actually. Let me just play this. Yeah. Well, this seems to be the winning idea. But g4? Not sure. I would have gone g4 a long time ago, but rook d7 looks like a good idea. Rook a8, rook c7, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that white have no idea how to win this endgame. And what else is going on? Tukayev, king c6. Very close to winning. King d5, I guess, and the rook will come here. Rook c2. Philip actually won his game. It was quite surprising that he resigned so early. I'm gonna wait and look at Stefansson's game, but I think the turn will be playing that game for a long time, so I'm not gonna see the entire game. I think rook d8. Yeah, they really want to defend passively here. Okay, then king g3. Just walk with the king. Maybe, yeah, just king g3. The king has to keep walking. It feels like it's winning for white, but it's still very tricky to win. How is black supposed to untangle? I mean, king f8 doesn't work, right? Because bishop b6, you have to go rook here, you have check, and you really don't get anywhere. I mean, this king, I want to go this way to c3, but I mean, I'm not sure I want to make a move like f4 actually. Maybe I have to, but I don't want to play king f3 obviously because that would suddenly lose the game, but that won't happen. Okay, let's update. Let's see what Stefansson is up to. King c6. What's going on here? Can you play a bit more actively? No, we can't. I was thinking d5, king d6, rook d4. But then I realized you can play b2, I think, and if rook b4 you can take on g3 and play h2, and you can't really stop both pawns. Yeah. Okay, I would be lying if I said I knew what was going on in Stefansson's game. But, yeah. Maybe I should tell someone to keep an eye on the Champions League scores for me. I'm really getting tired. King c6, nothing's happened here. And Hampus is still... The thing is, it feels like White is winning, but it's gonna take another 50 moves to at least win a pawn. Okay, if he played f4. Maybe he had to, but I still don't like the move f4. It feels like at some point Black can start getting some counterplay with f5 or h5. Whatever. I don't want to move. I didn't like f4 or g4. I just want to walk with the king this way. And then at the right moment trade the rooks, of course. I think it's very close to winning. If the king is close enough, you can trade the rooks and just walk in and grab everything, but rook e8. Yeah, just keep walking now. King f2. Maybe you even want to go h4 and g5 before you move the king away. f5? Really? Okay, so he obviously has some kind of winning idea, even though it's not the same idea that I had. Okay, maybe he wants to go something like, I don't know, h4, g5, f6. It looks extremely strange, but I'm just trying to figure out what he's trying to do. I actually have no idea. It's too bad that Stefansson has so much time. If he doesn't move anytime soon, I'm gonna end this broadcast actually. 40 minutes is a bit too much, and it's not a lot is going on around here. Eric is trying to win this, but it's gonna take a long time before he gets anywhere. So yeah, obviously tomorrow we have only one round, which is very good for me, which means I get to sleep tonight. And I think the round starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 15, at least Swedish time. Yeah, who's leading the tournament? I haven't checked. I mean, it's obviously Blomqvist and Hansen, and probably Tukayev will join. Feels like Tukayev will join. Did Hampus just go f6? Okay, now I'm pretty sure it's losing. I'm still not sure how or why, but this looks completely ugly. Just a move like rook a7 here or something. I'm not even sure what the idea of f6 is actually. Yeah. No, I don't like f6 at all. Anyway, Blomqvist and Hansen is leading his 2.5 points out of 3. Mayorov might also be leading. Maybe Bayram is also on 2.5 out of 3. I'm actually too tired to calculate the points. No, I can't switch windows, sorry. Philip, no, he lost this game, he can't be on 2. Martin Hauber, can he be on 2.5 out of 3? Maybe. It's possible. Anyway, yeah, I think yeah, they're thinking too much. Yeah, I'm actually gonna end the broadcast for today. There's only 2 games going on, and they're gonna be playing for quite a while, and they have too much time on the clock. So we're gonna play Rapid Chess next year. So thank you for today, I guess, and I will be back tomorrow at. Well, my broadcast will begin at 4 o'clock. The games will begin at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, of course. And now I will get some much deserved sleep. Okay, so thank you for today. Goodbye.